Hello and welcome to the season 2 of Sustainability 100 Plus Masterclass series. Today, we are hosting the first masterclass of the season on the topic Farming 101, How to Set Up Your Dream Farm. We have our esteemed guest today, Inesh Singh, who works as Associate Director, Sustainability and Agriculture at AB InBev, India and Southeast Asia. He has extensive experience in energy, sustainability, and agriculture domains. He was part of the 2019 Green Biz 30 under 30 cohort and has also been awarded the Mahatma Award for his work in sustainability. Welcome, Anish.
Thank you, Sugandha.
We have 5 questions for you today and look forward for your insights on them. So starting off with the first question. What are the most important considerations if someone wants to start their own farm?
That's a really good question, Sugandha. So when someone thinks about starting their own farm, I think the number one consideration is the location. Where is the farm going to be located? Is it going to be the state of Rajasthan, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra? Because basis the location, it will lead to a lot more decisions being finalized in terms of the type of crop that you're going to sow and the weather that you're going to get. So the location becomes a very, very important factor when thinking about starting your own farm. Then once the location is finalized, the second thing that a farmer needs to ascertain is what is the type of crop that they'll be growing. Is it going to be a cash crop? Is it going to be a food crop? Is it going to be something related to horticulture? Once the location is finalized, it's very important to understand the climate, what farmers have been doing in that region historically, what are the trends in terms of farming in the region, and basis this analysis, you arrive at the type of crop. The third thing to do once the type of crop is finalized is secure access to good seed, farm inputs, and a crop protocol. Seeds are very important because if your seed lot is bad, your harvest is going to be bad. You need access to the right kind of seed, treated with the right products to ensure it's resistant to insect attacks. Then you need the right crop protocol. You need to have that guidance in place, which tells you what to do, when to do. What does the farming season overall looks like? When does irrigation happen? When does nutrition application happen? So that needs to be defined really well. And then you need to secure the farm inputs to finally realize that crop protocol. So you need to make sure there's a supply chain connecting you to the fertilizers and any other products that you want to use on the farm. After you've done all of this, the fourth bit then becomes monitoring the actual crop. Once you put the seed in the ground, how is it growing? How is it maturing? Is it getting attacked by insects or pests, or are there any diseases? Crop monitoring becomes very important. And it is a labor-intensive process. You need to make sure you catch anything wrong on your farm pretty early on in the cycle, because otherwise you are looking at larger yield losses purely because someone did not catch the problem in time. And then I think after all of this, once you take all of this into consideration, the most important criteria becomes time. If someone wants to do farming, they need to have time. They also need the right resources, the right education, the right staff on the farm. But, farming is a time-intensive business. You need to be on the farm. You need to make sure things are happening properly. And you need to make sure you have the bandwidth to monitor and improve the farm over time. It can't run in a silo without supervision.
Thank you so much, Anish. With so much detailed considerations that you have pointed out. Moving on to the next question. What best practices should one implement right from the start?
And when you talk about best practices related to farming, it's very critical that someone is very scientific in his or her outlook. If they are doing farming, that's the right way to do it. That's the right way to get the right ROIs and start churning out profits sooner versus traditional methods. Because in India, there are a lot of farmers who still follow the traditional method. So, going into the detailed best practices, like before you start the season, you need to make sure you're doing soil testing. You're understanding what kind of soil you're dealing with and what kind of inputs you need to add to the soil to grow the crop that you want to grow. The second thing is getting the right protocol in place from the right sources. Even if you're growing barley, for example, there are 50 different kinds of barley. So which which protocol applies to the variety of barley that you're growing. It's very important to get that right. Preventative treatments are also necessary in places where you have a lot of termites in the soil, which might attack the seed. So you need to make sure treatments are done in advance before you put the seed in the ground. Moving on to the in-season activities, you need to make sure you're driving irrigation efficiency. Try to use renewable energy on your farm as much as possible. Agriculture also has a carbon footprint. Better to minimize it and minimize your costs in the process. You need to make sure you're monitoring the farm properly for insects, pests, and diseases, like we discussed. And then, after the crop has matured and you come to the post-season, I think one of the best practices that one can do is have a on-site storage. A lot of farmers in India are not able to benefit from the trends in market prices because they don't have storage capabilities. So I think that's a best practice if you're starting a farm, have that on-site storage, and then build a database over time, like whatever you're doing on the soil, whatever you're doing with the crop, keep building a database so that you can in the future analyze what worked well, what did not work well, and then that informs your crop protocol moving forward. So that's something you ensure that post-season that's happening. And then I think the final best practice is to make sure you have identified the route to market, plus the quality requirements of the grain or whatever crop you're doing, basis the customer that you're going to sell it to. So if you are exporting, maybe you have better quality requirements. If you are selling it domestically, the requirements are a little lesser, but they will really inform the kind of income you can get. So it's better to have that clear right from the start as a best practice.
Great. Now, I think that we understand the important considerations and the practices that we need to implement. What about sustainable farming? Is it difficult to do?
Sustainable farming is it's a tricky topic. Sustainable farming is basically, farming to deliver your current needs without compromising the ability for current or future generations to meet their needs in the short term, medium term, or the long term. If you look at how you do sustainable farming, the essence is that you minimize the use of chemicals. Different standards have different rules, but primarily it's all about minimizing use of chemical or artificial inputs on your farm of any kind, be it fertilizer, insecticides, pesticides, etc. So it is difficult to do. A lot of issues with sustainable farming. You need to prepare the land. The land needs to go through certain treatments over a period of time before you can do farming and then certify it as sustainable. The costs are a little prohibitive for farmers who want to transition. So if you're a traditional farmer with a set income, it's very difficult for you to transition to sustainable farming. It's a process. It's not a change that you can do instantly. You take the Sri Lanka example where they banned import of chemicals, and now the farming ecosystem got so disturbed that they are not able to meet their needs. So it's difficult. It needs a lot of patience. It needs a lot of effort, but there are a lot of benefits that can be achieved from sustainable farming if you really focus on it over time and make it happen on your premises.
Nice. What incentives exist for someone who actually wants to do sustainable farming?
In terms of incentives, I think the number one incentive is better prices, better returns on your farming costs if you find the right buyers. So it's very important to get the supply chain right. So that's the first incentive, because companies or organizations who are looking for sustainable products are ready to pay a premium for it because their consumers are ready to pay a premium for it. So you always have those increased incomes when you start farming sustainably. You also see an increased rate of return over time. Oftentimes you've heard stories that if you're transitioning a commercial farm to a sustainable farm, you will have a yield dip over the first few years, and then moving on to the fourth or the fifth or the sixth year, you will see the yields coming up again, because then the land starts getting used to performing without any artificial inputs, and you build an ecosystem which enables it to get stronger and better over time. So you get a dip because you've stopped using the chemicals, but then once everything goes well, over time you will see an increase. So that increase happens in sustainable farming. It also leads to farm longevity. So we have had farmers talk to us about depleted soil nutrition over time, especially in some pockets of Haryana. If you start doing sustainable farming, you need not be worried about it. You are developing an ecosystem which enables the soil to regenerate naturally. You are not adding any chemicals. So you don't need to worry about your soil going bust at the end of the day. It leads to long-term sustenance of farm. And then I think the final benefit is a healthier ecosystem, right? Like the farmers live on the farm, their families live on the farm. So if you're farming sustainability, it's a much safer place to be at versus being located at a point where you're using a lot of chemicals and then they get into your food chain, which is not really good. So these kind of incentives are there for people who want to pursue sustainable farming.
Interesting. I think a lot of benefits and incentives that are out there for practicing the sustainable farming. Moving on, what is the innovation sector like there in agro? Like, how is it performing, and what kind of support system exists for the first-time farmers?
Yep. The innovation sector in agro in India is booming. You will find startups offering probably every service there is to be offered at a farm level, from crop advisories to machinery, to crop tracking, to satellite monitoring, to estimating yields. The ecosystem has really boomed. However, I think the drawbacks over there are, especially for small and medium scale farmers, they don't really get efficiencies in implementing these technologies. If implemented on a large scale, definitely they give you a rate of return. But if you're implementing it in a small scale, then you really have to think about how much money you are investing versus the kind of benefits you are able to drive. So there is that balance that needs to happen. However, for farmers, I think the good news is that every single aspect of farming that we talked about right now is enabled by technology. So you have providers out there who will support you, who will help you improve your operations or optimize your operations. So the ecosystem has really matured. I think the next step is how to understand driving cost economies in this ecosystem, because that's really critical. Because otherwise, you'll have a small subset of large farmers who are really high tech and digitized versus small and medium scale farmers who will never be able to leverage these technologies because of the limited benefits or the limited ROI coming out from them. So in a nutshell, I think the innovation sector is doing really good. However, there are still some improvements to be made for all the innovations to become mainstream.
Thank you so much, Inesh. I think that's it for our viewers today. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and our audiences will learn more about the farming and would like have an innovation in the agro sector going forward. We hope our viewers enjoyed the session, and we'll be back soon with the next topic in the next masterclass. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sugandha.